Welcome to the second season of Made Unmade, the podcast where Johan Melin goes on a journey through his made films and his unmade films. And today's episode is Profetia. Hello dear listeners, also new ones, old friends. I know you're out there and I'm happy to be back after a hiatus of 1 year in this digging into the past to come out into the future on the other side, right? So today is about sort of a bastard child story. Profetia, it started actually already the night after I finished Preludium. And I was gonna go the next day to Sarajevo with my then friend Goran Kapitanovic to write a story, film for him, his first feature film, a film that is another story in itself, and it never got made. But what happened was that we had done the impossible, right? We had finished Preludium, a film shot in one take. We had done 5 successful takes or successful films, so to speak, over a week, and survived both the Copenhagen weekend with the drunks and the punks, as well as that Iraq had won the Asian Cup in soccer, and 5,000 people were out in the streets while we were shooting. And we had captured all this, so we were also kind of high on the feeling of accomplishment, or we knew that we had done something incredibly cinematic and something the world had not seen before. Anywho, I go to bed and I have this dream of all the characters from Preludium somehow gather around a fire out in the suburbs where my mother-in-law lives, in an old amphitheater, and how this old woman is kind of summoning them all by writing. She has written stories about all these characters in Preludium, right? And as she burns them, they come alive in the city. So that kind of very, very strong dream I had. And then I went to Sarajevo. I came back, and meanwhile, Preludium was getting the beauty of what we had done or managed to achieve in one take, and it really was my own call to myself that I should create here and now and not go around and wait for anybody to say go or not. So I had a fantastic festival year, Gothenburg, Mannheim, Heidelberg, the Night Film Festival, Prague, Fibio Film Fest, and so on and so on, Berlin, and we also managed to get Preludium out in the cinemas. So all of a sudden there was this kind of how to say, jump in development, and actually we managed to distribute a film which was made for, on the paper at least, $0, and got it out all over Denmark, and yeah. So I had this very, very strong vision that I had kind of came to me, you know, like when some ideas all of a sudden comes with this lightning speed, this almost like a whole movie rushing to me. And I think it was in 2008 I started to write Profetia and or Profetia, right? And I wrote it as a novel first, kind of cinematic novel, and the producers Elise Lund Larsen and Vibeke Fogel from Bullet Film, who had been co-producing Preludium together with me and the Good Army. They took it on and we sent it to the Film Institute, and lo and behold, for the first time Mr. Merlin got some money from the Film Institute to develop it. And it was back in those days something, there still is actually, called New Danish Screen, which was like a label or for debutantes, and it encouraged the experimental, the wild, and anything that kind of developed a filmmaker's storytelling shops, or you know, anything that tried to push the medium forward. And with Profetia I was very, very ambitious. I had this thing also, like triple screens. I envisioned also that it was supposed to be every scene was supposed to be shot in one take, which we also did with success. But let me break down the story first to you. So we have Sophie. She's a older unpublished writer, and on this very same day that her daughter Eva, who we know from Preludium, is gonna get married to this Swedish guy, Max, she decides to go out to this amphitheater in the suburbs and burn all her unpublished books. And as she burns them one by one, they somehow come to life, and she summons all these people to the fire, where they somehow must confront the love that they lost or turn their back against. And so we have that story that is kind of the epicenter of the film. And then we have Ruth's story, which Ruth from Preludium, played by Anna Fabricius, after the Preludium story, Ruth goes to Rio de Janeiro with Eva, and we also captured this actually in a short film called Death and Love that was shot in Brazil. which was an adventure in its own. I can maybe make an episode about that at some point. Anywho, so Evan and Ruth goes to Rio de Janeiro together, and they have a romance, and at some point when Ruth gets the news of that her husband Milovan is shot dead, as we know from Preludium, she falls off a boat. She's out on a tourist trip boat, and she falls into the water and has a near-death experience. So after this accident, she changes, and all of a sudden she can hear what other people think, and she is very, very afraid of this power, so to speak, because this also disables her ways of kind of near communication, or to be near anybody, because who knows what people really are thinking, right? So we have that kind of story with Ruth, and she has a one-night stand with this composer called Kasper Telemann, played by Nikolai Faber, who is a very, very talented director, theater director on his own now. And he has also some kind of power, actually, that every time he's near Ruth, some kind of piece of a great symphony comes to him. Some beautiful music is taking place every time he sees her. All right, and then we have Lars Witt, the self-help guru from Preludium, who is now profiting from. He has written a book about Ruth and her near-death experience, and Lars tries to break into more like, let's say, new age market, and is making more money than ever, but is also more miserable than ever, because the cost of this life he has led, where he preaches this and that, also to be here and now and spiritual. In his private life, he lost his wife Eva by being constantly unfaithful to her, and the kind of tragedy of it is that the daughter is somewhere in between. Emma, her name is somewhere, like in all divorces, torn back and forth between the two combatants, and Lars definitely lost this, right? And all his kind of previous sins also, if you remember from Preludium, there is a flashback actually in Preludium where he rapes a younger fan, and this fan is coming back to him now with she has a child as a result of this gruesome encounter. So and Lars is gonna have this big kind of book release about near-death experiences, and how to access yourself through death and so on. And then you have the Johnny story, and Johnny is a wheelchair Nazi, actually, and he has this local radio show where he sits and spits out all his hate all day long. Kind of like a predecessor to these sad internet trolls that we all have to, how to say, encounter. But Johnny, he blames the immigrants for his state, but the truth is that he was how to say, construction worker, and he was high and drunk at work, and somehow fell down from a building. But it's also a little bit ambivalent if he actually tried to kill himself or not. However the case, he lives together with Sanne in a very, very tragic place in Nordwest, in the suburbs of Copenhagen. And he is convinced that his girlfriend has an affair with the immigrant neighbor next door. This very day, Johnny is approached by a man called Tom, played by Anders Hove. Johnny is played by Kristoffer Svane. And we learn also that Tom, Johnny's father, is a real hater motherfucker. He has done the worst both towards Johnny, and soon we learn that this old guy, Tom, he had an affair with the woman out by the fire and putting fire to all her unpublished novels, Sophie. And this very day, Tom wants to talk with his son, and Johnny just tells him to fuck off, more or less. And Tom is going to the hospital, and where he has a heart attack. And Ruth, the woman who now can hear what other people are talking, and also it's said, there's a kind of like narration voiceover in Profetia all the time. It also says that she could sometimes see the souls who were not on this earth anymore, but she kind of, like we all do when we see mystic shit, right, that she just tries to deny it, this power, right? So Tom is there on the operation table, and Ruth sees his soul kind of pass up into the roof, but then he awakens and he says to her that she must do a very important task to him, for him, and that is to give Sophie a letter that he has been carrying around in his pocket, and that is kind of explaining everything. And all these stories kind of interacts and intermingles. So you have this, like in Preludium, how people kind of walk out and in of each other's lives, and soon more and more these stories start to come together. And then of course there's Eva, played by Patricia Schumann, and it's her wedding day, right? And the consequence of her mother out burning her manuscripts on this very day, is that she doesn't show up at her own daughter's wedding, right? And Eva is very, very worried, and she has a bad feeling about all of this. So she actually, and her daughter is also seeing some visions in the church, and Eva decides to go out to this amphitheater in order to confront her mother. And slowly all these stories is blending into each other, and one by one these characters are driven out towards the fire of redemption, so to speak. And the big question maybe that Profetia poses is, are we our stories? Can we change what's been written? Is there such a thing as fate? Is there such a thing as destiny? Coincidence? And what they all have in common is also that they are very, very fragile and wounded people who all look for love, like we all do. And there comes this moment also, beautiful actually, when they all come to this fire and meets in a way their creator, or is she their creator, or Sophie, and this also leads them to kind of having to where all these fake layers that we carry, all these masks, they are kind of just cracking down, and they all seem to give up at some point. You know, there is a moment in the film where they all go down the very dark hole. You know, Johnny realizes that he's basically fucked his own life up, and goes to shoot himself, or rolls away to shoot himself after orchestrating a very sick game with this immigrant neighbor and his girlfriend. And Eva is confronting her mother, but also Lars Vit, her ex-husband. And that is not for kids, so to speak. And then, of course, Ruth, who cannot choose love and is somehow trapped in this juvenile thinking of that she cannot love anybody, because when you hear what people are thinking, it's kind of distancing you from everything, even though if this composer loves her dearly and madly. So I wanted to kind of flip what you could do in a narrative, whereas Preludium is much more, let's say, straight story, even if it's as straight as I could do it. But you know, it's about people going somewhere. Some Eva in Preludium, she has decided to leave her cheating husband Lars, and she must reach this plane. We have a time lock. We have Ruth looking for her husband, and we have Lars, who is kind of following Ruth because he is somehow intrigued by that she can cut through his bullshit. And we have this second violinist who wants to beat down the first violinist so he can take his place in the orchestra. It was very, very, let's say, clear story. Whereas here, I wanted to do a kind of a requiem, and one of the finest things anybody said about Profetia was a friend of mine, Daniel Deutsch, and he came up to me after the premiere, which kind of left everybody shaken. And yeah, I will tell you more about that, the reactions to the film later, but Deutsch really nailed it to me. He said, like, all right, Preludium was like, to him it was Mozart's Requiem, and this, or was it the other way around? Yeah, it was the other way around. He said Preludium was Verdi's Requiem, and Profetia is like Mozart's Requiem. And I was amazed because basically I wrote the novel Profetia to Mozart's Requiem on repeat. I even sent to the Film Institute a CD, a home-burned CD with Mozart's Requiem. So in a way it was my attempt of making, if Preludium was this very, how to say, in a way light film about heavy things, this was the fucking heavyweight, right? And we worked on it, me and the actors. We got development money, and together with Ine Ureheim, I wrote a script, and we actually got greenlit. And I mean, I started making films, DIY, or whatever it's called, very early in my life, right? And I finished film school. After film school, I made 2 feature films, and I had made Kraftbögen before, so I made 3 feature films. But I remember the day when we got the green light for making the films, and big thanks to Kim Leona for believing in me. It was like a dream to me, I had to pinch myself if this is true. Now it's happening on the back of my little indie film success. Now it's happening. You are gonna make the big kahuna. Well, it was time to turn the stake around, so to speak. This was also the first time I ever received any grants from the Film Institute, ever. From back then, I had been making movies since I was 18, and here I was finally being somehow compensated for many, many, many years of hard work and trying to make something that was not your average meatballs and potato mash movie. Quite the different. Profetia went on a deeper plane, and maybe that's why the reception of it was so mixed, because maybe I tried to do what all directors sooner or later try to do, is to make their great novel as a film. But we started to develop the the film, very closely working with the actors. Fantastic experience where we worked for, I think, 6 months, um, both in rehearsal, and we're doing these scenes that are also not in the script, but it's a way that I developed where the actors is basically creating memories for the characters, you can say. So all the kind of pivotal moments that is referred to in the script gets somehow a physical manifestation of them. Uh, Let me try to explain it in English, right? It's let's say we have a character in the film, like Eva and Lars Witt. Lars Witt is this self-help guru that maybe needs more help than anybody else, and Eva is his wife. So in the film, there is this inevitable movement from these two people who have separated and who have nothing in common, and she hates him, hates his guts. He's been unfaithful to her. He's been a lying, cheating bastard, more or less, right? But then, together with the actors, we are doing those scenes kind of leading up to. I mean, in the actual film, they're not together even anymore, but there will be some kind of confrontation with them in the end, and therefore we kind of build up the emotional moments for the actors. So rehearse it very, very thoroughly. So when they are actually referring to that time you did this and that, it actually happened. So we don't have to, as such, produce these moments, And together with Lars Reinholdt, the cinematographer, we also decided that every scene in the movie should be shot in one take. And I had this, and maybe still has, this idea of that if you shoot it in one take, you get this dreamlike quality where the film actually you follow the scene and the action in a totally different way, more like when you have a dream, you can't get out of the dream. All of a sudden it just continues, or like life. There is not a cut to, in this sense. And this gives a very, very, how to say, strong sense of presence that I think all my films have, due to this way of shooting the films. I shot The Brightening this way. I shot Preludium, which was one take, this way. I shot Profetia this way, and I also shot Minut at that way. Sometimes a take could be 20 minutes. What do I know? And it also helps the actors because they are allowed to follow their character's step in real time. I'm not saying that you cannot do it otherwise, or you can kind of cut up a whole film, just little bits and pieces. But actually, with Profetia, at least, we created the film as we went along, And everybody was kind of on a creative high, I must say, with the film. We shot it in 7 weeks in 2008 and 9. And it was quite an experience. we use this old outside in the suburbs of Copenhagen. There's a beautiful amphitheater, and I wanted this kind of mixture of taking people from these quarters that is generally misrepresented in Danish cinema or even in Swedish cinema, and place these characters there in, I lived there myself to begin with, but also kind of mix this very in some ways operatic stories together with the, let's say, the brutality of the surroundings, right? And in a way, I realized this when I rewatched Profetia, is that I always try to make the perfect unperfect movie, right? And to some people, it can look like I've just picked up a camera and thrown in some actors, but it's meticulously rehearsed. And in general, I see this tendency in Swedish and Danish cinema, maybe also Norwegian cinema, Scandinavian cinema, is that what's applauded is this idea of full control, right? And my movies, and I am all about somehow gaining the control to lose all control, right? Because this is how I interpret life, and I wanted to tap in with Profetia into the absurd, because I think that life is all the time on this edge of being deeply comical and at the same time deeply tragic. And it seems to me at some point that we've all been handed a deck of cards with this life tragedy. It might be inherited, it might be somehow like, the story card we get, like this is your struggle, and it seems also like life or society doesn't want us to break out of this card we have dealt to ourselves or maybe been given. And Profetia is about that. So we have like previously said, we have Johnny, the son of the hater, right? The result of an unwanted child, so to speak, with an absent father. There is also very heart-cracking. I was totally tearing up when we made this scene when young Johnny is left by his father at a very, very early age, telling him not to cry, stay in this apartment, and he just walks out the door and never comes back, right? So we have the hater and the hater's son. We have the failed writer, Sophie, who somehow has an idea to burn everything she's ever written, and by doing so the stories come to life. And we have Ruth, who is some kind of a psyche character, right, that can read other people's minds but is unable to love after her near-death experience. We have Eva, who is choosing love finally with a new Swedish husband, Max, but is still in love with the darkness and the devil himself, Lars Vit, who is prophesizing and capitalizing on other people's traumas, but is unable to deal with his own trauma. And we have also, of course, the composer who is kind of chasing the music, which is only taking place when he sees this woman that he has fallen in love with, Ruth. So everybody's kind of chasing something they cannot get, right? And on some level, a lot of the criticism I heard of the film, because, ladies and gentlemen, let's face it, this became an unwanted child, so to speak, right? Was that, you know, they somehow came up to me and started to tell me about their own family problems, right? And kind of blaming me for bringing it up, you know. But it was never my intention. Don't shoot the therapist, so to speak. But I can totally understand that. And then I think there's not so much of a tradition in Scandinavia for this kind of... There's not a big tradition for this kind of films in Scandinavia. And yeah, now my daughter is coming in to the show, breaking in. What do you want? Yeah, tell me. Inget. Vad ska du göra? Varför inte det? So, yeah, my daughter is hiding here for some reason. I don't know why.
Because my mama is trying to make me bang.
Your mother wants you to take a bath. All right. Yeah, let's... ladies and germs, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The very, very impossible tasks, you know, that you set yourself. Somebody wants you to take a bath, you go into hiding, right? Somebody wants you to love them, the same is happening. And I think Profetia was about, yeah, you know, like all my films is about love to a certain degree. And, you know, what love is really doing to people. And it raises the question kind of like, are we able to love in spite of our stories? Yes.
Why is love something?
Why is love something?
Yeah, like a word.
I guess, you know, to have, I will quote John Cassavetes, you know, who talks about to have a philosophy. And philos, it comes from the Greek word philos, right? To know. And to know is to love. To have a philosophy is to love. I mean, I guess the word love is coming from live, right? To live and love. I guess it's pretty much the same thing. It's a very, very interesting question, Ilana. Okay. When confronted with this question by my daughter, what is love? That is maybe what Profetia is all about. Then after 6 or 7 weeks of shooting, we wrapped it up. But the special thing about it was that since we shot every scene in one take and put the best scenes together. Very quickly we had a first version of the film, and it was with a running time of approximately 3 hours and 20 minutes. So very quickly we had a first version running time about 3 hours and 20 minutes or something like this, and me and the good army, like we call ourselves, this beautiful ensemble of actors, we saw it together, and it was an incredible emotional experience. And the people actually who saw the first cut said that they never seen this, a great first cut like this. Then started a very, very long process of trying to get this film down in size. And I think, I wouldn't say like that's when things started to go wrong, but a part of me still believes, and maybe I will put it out there someday, that my director's cut, so to speak, of Profetia ended up on approximately 3 hours. And I know all this talk about a film is also what you leave out, the story is also what you don't show. But I think in order for the story and the way how it was made to have its full impact, if it was released in this 3 hour version, I think it would have made much more sense to a certain degree, because I think that the final version, so to speak, that runs approximately around 2 hours is great also. I love it. But I think that the impact of the scenes and the, let's say, hypnotic rhythm that we created in this very present, at the very set, showed more of my and the Good Army's film cinematic chops than when we started to chop it up. Because if we would have, let's say, planned it more like a traditional film with this shot, then I could definitely see how it would have fit together much more. But I mean, I must say also big shout out to Camilla Ebling, who did a great job with kind of condensing the story into 2 hours. And we also worked incredibly much on the sound. You know, there was like a whole universe there. How does it sound when you can hear other people's thoughts? And it was a very ambient and beautiful sound design by Bobby Hess. And then also what Lars Reinholdt, the great maestro Lars Reinholdt, whom I also worked with on The Brightening, and whom I worked with since the Danish film school. It was also quite something. Then there was also this thing about how it would come out, because we had gotten the money, but we still lacked distribution. And the distributors saw it. They found it quite undistributable, or I don't know. It was a hard sell, let me say it like this. It was Level K actually who ended up doing the distribution. And we had also this radical idea back then in 2009 of putting the movie out on all platforms at once, so it on the release date it came into the cinemas, it came out streaming, and it came out on DVD. But in 2009, this with streaming was something that people didn't do, and the internet connection for many people was generally too slow to do it. So it turned out to be a very, let's say, non-scene affair. I remember now also that we tried to get it into some major festivals, and I got a very, very nice letter from the director of Sundance, or the programming director, saying like, we love this film, but it is too independent for what kind of films Sundance is premiering these days. So basically, in the letter, he explained how Sundance had went from a festival, like an indie festival, to becoming a platform where the so-called indie of the US and the world, with a budget of, let's say, 10 million euro or $10 million, those are the kind of film that premiere in Sundance these days, not like our little $1 million movie. And it was met with, let's say, skepticism from all over the place. And I mean, the reason we got the money was to make an experimental piece, obviously, to see how we could develop this language that we had done through the brightening and preludium, and kind of had our independent success with these movies, right? Or at least preludium, so to speak. And I'm thinking about this now also, that this year, when Profetia came out, it was 2009/2010. That was kind of like the end of the golden age of storytelling that Dogme had brought to Denmark, because what I think that the Danes, or at least the Danish Film Institute, did very well, that the Swedish Film Institute still to this date is unable to do, is to kind of lift new talent and to let a filmmaker develop their own language. And previously now, I was at a reunion from the film school like 1 month ago, and we were talking about this. It was so great. I saw all these people that I worked with, the great Ine Urheim, the script writer, and Camilla Ebling, the editor, and also some other people who had contributed to this film that we're talking about. And it struck me that we spent many years, maybe 7-8 years together, developing a film language that was totally our own, that was kind of radical, wanted to break with this this gap between character actors and the film industry, because as I see it, is like there's a lot of great actors in Scandinavia, but their job becomes more of making shit become into gold. But what happens if you come with gold and try to refine it together, right? And I also think what we did succeed with was to on all artistic levels try to push the limits from what we had seen in Scandinavian cinema so far, because it also, let's say that a lot of Scandinavian cinema got a little bit stuck in that everything had to be so small. And this was a way of somehow saying, all right, let's take something that is very, very, this collection of, let's say, the novella approach to the story, put them together, and then elevate them with a underlying power that is about big things like the collective subconsciousness. Is there a thing as synchronicity? Is there a thing such as destiny? Is there a thing maybe going on now in the society where people lock down their love or their tentacles of love, and that they somehow shield themselves in order to become these stories. This was also before social media and before, let's say, both likes, love became a currency like it is today. Anywho, the film, we made a deal with that the film would be screened in the Cinematheque at the beginning, and unfortunately these other cinematic venues, they as I see it, everybody turned a little bit into like, yeah, if I'm not going to be the one who is premiering it, I will not let it run in my cinema. So there we were with the new film that premiered only in the Cinematheque for 1 week, I think, or 10 days. And at the same time coming out on streaming platforms and on DVD, and with time it was also shown in both on Danish TV and Swedish TV. And the reaction from people was ruthless. Many, much hate for this film. The media was kind of, let's say, it was like nobody had a consensus about this story, right? It was everything from 1 star to 4 stars. One of the biggest newspapers in Denmark, Berlingske, they gave it 4-star review. And typically for this Profetia, that the only 4-star review we got was then they had forgotten to online to put out the stars. It was only in the newspapers. So anyhow, what it said was that it's uncompromising, not very funny, and very, very heavy piece of filmmaking, and it deserves all the respect it can get for this. And the biggest newspaper, Politiken, was also pretty positive towards it, saying that it didn't come together the way the critic thought I intended to, but they could definitely see the qualities of making something different, Like with all my films, this was an odd bird, and my love for it was still unconditional, but I noticed around its premiere that this was apparently the fart in the room, and all of a sudden I was contagious, right? So from then on, this is 2009, right, when it premiered, I have not gotten a single film financed fully since then. I have been able to make my films, but my 2 cents on this is the following. We live in an era where they don't want new original voices. They want new original voices for their first film, to be able to say it, to be able to lift them up, but they don't want directors' careers anymore. And they don't want auteurs. They want people who execute not a vision, but a concept. And I am quite radical from that. The film, I will also say that, all right, there were also critics saying that it seems like I had just thrown in some actors off the street into and kind of shooting it. But okay, in a way that was maybe a compliment, because I put a lot of effort, like I told you previously, about trying to make something to seem very, very like it had manifested from some kind of chaos, but in real life it was very, very, how to say, controlled. But, in Scandinavia we have this idea of that, this control, and to be this demonic director, it's something so nice, and I know a lot of directors, they kind of like, oh, I made 50 takes on this, and then you see the take and everything sounds like robot speaking, da 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 da. All right, for Profetia I also maybe made some one takes where I maybe made 17 takes to get the right emotional feel of it, right? But then I don't know why. I think the second thing is also that it kind of goes against this Scandinavian way of that everything must be concealed. People talk about, you wrote here in this text that da 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 da. We're very, very, at least on a script level, going into this exposition, and that every day is about these banal things. You cannot talk about love. You cannot talk about life. It's tragedy or the joy of it without being seen as pretentious. Yeah, this was also a very thing. Okay, maybe it is a pretentious film, but that was also the intention, right? The intention was writing a novel that somehow, as it's being burnt, becomes a story, a film story. So, and raises somehow the question about ourselves and how we relate to God. Do we live in God, or is there a God? These things, right? But I guess in a world where God is dead or potentially a sadist, this doesn't call for too much. But the main thing I wanted to say also, if there would be, I don't think there's any chance of it, if ever the Swedish Film Institute or the Danish Film Institute listens to this, this is what I have to say, is that you are out of touch with your own time. I wanted to tell stories that kind of takes the pulse and listens to the sizzling pulse of this very zeitgeist that we live in. And I didn't want to do it through the metaphor of some post Second World War traumas, or that you are giving all these millions to, or films about how hard it is to stand and pitch a film to people or whatever, because that is not reality. Understand what I mean? That is a very, very specific reality for the 0.0.01%, right? What I wanted to do was to make Ett drömspel by Strindberg, but as a film version, right? I wanted to take dreams seriously. And apparently there was not so much room for this in the Scandinavian culture. One of the finest things, one of Lars von Trier's collaborator, Kirsten Dalsgaard, she said that this film is like a Strindbergian inferno. Yeah, it was also shown in some festivals like Gothenburg Film Festival, and also in Prague at the Fibio Film Fest. I was there, I remember, with Gaspar Noé and Terence Davis, who both were premiering their films. And maybe at that point, on the back of Preludium, I had such great visions in mind for this, or so high hopes maybe for this film. So I was not even aware of, when I was there in Prague sitting with Gaspar Noé having a dinner, I was kind of unaware of, okay, this is the level I'm at now with my films, because I was still disappointed that it didn't make it to Cannes and it didn't make it to this and that festival, But like Lai said, the guy who plays Lars Vith, is that you cannot make a subversive piece of art and then expect the establishment to stand up and applaud you. And inevitably I was in film prison from that point. So all these ideas of that I would be able to make these great films about people and expressing things that I lacked in cinema in general, that is not about the absence of love, but about love and about how we interact as humans. I had to find myself all doors closed one by one. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, you're the guy who made Profetia. And then people were backing slowly backwards. What I didn't know, that you think it's gonna be better. No, it can always get worse, right? And at that point in my life, 2010, then I should have been more grateful for having found this great group of people that wanted to change films, and that I worked with. We also did one more film together. It was called Guys, Gals, Kids. After this one, that I will return to in another episode. But anyhow, Profetia was somehow the film where we did, in a very, very condensed and beautiful way, I think, everything we set out to do. And the reaction to it was like, what the fuck, right? But I will in now I rewatched the film, and I think maybe it's coming out now on Draken Film, which is a streamer in Sweden where all my films can be found. And also the film will be available on YouTube for those of you who wants to see it. But it was this general feeling after Profetia was like, no more Mr. Merlin, right? And I went into a very deep depression, and I wanted in a way to quit filmmaking, which to a certain degree was kind of, I had been doing it for 12 years, and everything led up to this film. And then there was some kind of poetic that's not justice, but some kind of poetry into the way of that preludium, which we made, let's say the same cast and crew, good army, which we made in one take. This film traveled, had 100,000 audience, and Profetia, which got all the means, or let's say in reality it's just that everybody could be paid, let's say it like this, because these days $1 million is not very much for a film. So this film with two great producers, both Vibeke Fogel and Elise Lund Larsson, this film didn't come out as well as Preludium. And maybe now how I see it is that it maybe doesn't. So if you're sitting out there and you getting reacted or whatever, I mean, to be honest, I'm still getting reacted by both the Danish Film Institute and the Swedish Film Institute. It has been some openings, but in the end, they always decided to not support me. And it's like every time I also have to kind of explain to anybody, like, all right, but I made 5 or 6 feature films and 20 short films. Yeah, but all right, but how much did they sell? Which production company? Yeah, it was my own production company. Oh yeah, all right, fuck you. So if you sit out there with a great idea, I would urge you to pick up your mobile phone and go out and do the film instead of waiting, because in the end, even today, for anybody, even if you have like the best press agents, you have the biggest budget, it's a ruthless competition. I mean, literally hundreds of films are being pumped out every day, and it's a big chance that nobody will see your film. But maybe that is not the aim, In the old days, I think that in the old days, when it was not so fixated on how many people are watching a film, how much does it cost, all the kind of shallow things around it. It's maybe that is not the aim. The aim is maybe for you to try to find your voice. And I think with Profetia, I did find my voice, but found out that nobody likes it. Or on the other hand, maybe you have a tendency to say no one when 2 or 3 bullies are telling you that you look like a piece of shit, punk ass motherfucker, chimp motherfucker, right? And in the end, you forget all these great reactions that I had also. That, like I started off the episode with Daniel Deutsch, who said, last time with Preludium you made Verdi's Requiem, and now you have made Mozart's Requiem. And I thought that was so great, he said. I thought the film was so great, so I went in and saw it again the next day, right? Beautiful, beautiful. So there might be also an afterlife for Profetia, because I think now when I rewatch it, I kind of see that we all have become the stories that we try to show off on social media and this and that. But who are we really? And are we capable of love when we have become the story of ourselves? And is it maybe a good idea that things must burn in order to come back to life? I don't know. I'm just a humble filmmaker, and I thank you for listening, and see you soon again.